Colin Robertson joins me now. He's a former Canadian diplomat and current vice president at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Good morning, Colin. Always good to see you. So it has been 1 year since the attacks, and now Israel is fighting a war on a number of different fronts. How would you characterize the current state of things across the Middle East as fears of that wider war still loom?
Marcia, it's an unmitigated tragedy that has polarized countries, divided the West, and I don't see an off-ramp for a solution. It's, as they say, it's tragic for the victims of October the 7th. It's tragic for the 2 million displaced in Palestine. And now it's broadening into Lebanon, as you just demonstrated. There's a war effectively war now with Iran and with Yemen. And then the West itself is divided on this. It's divided Canadians. It's just a tragic situation, and diplomacy has a role here, but it's hard to see an opportunity for diplomacy when the various sides don't seem to want to sit down, and certainly ceasefire seems a long ways off, despite best efforts by the United Nations and others, and that's another victim in all of this, international law.
Many hostage families say there has been a lack of political will to bring the hostages home. What's your take on why these people are still being held captive 1 year later?
Well, as you've reported, we've had a whole series of negotiations with various components, but it's hard to negotiate with, in the case with Hamas, where the principals who are holding the hostages are not at the table, and the people that represent them, in many cases, have since been eliminated by the Israelis. And so despite, again, efforts by those in the neighborhood to try and come to some solution, it has not achieved its effect. And indeed, it seems that the situation is going to simply get worse.
Where does all of this leave Israel? Is Israel any safer today than it was 1 year ago?
Well, I think if you ask Israeli people, most of them do not think they're safer, and certainly Israel's reputation, particularly in the West and in the rest of the world, has taken a big hit, with leaders indicted, whether fairly or not, by international courts of justice and the votes at the UN. It's not a good day for Israel, and again, hard to see how this ends. Benjamin Netanyahu, as you've reported, has his own agenda in this, and supported by hardliners. And instead of people coming together, the country appears even more divided, except on determination to defend itself, which I think is its legitimate right.
Colin Robertson, thank you so much. Colin is a former Canadian diplomat and the current vice president at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute.